Good afternoon, everybody. One rookie. Good afternoon, everybody. Gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. Let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Robert, please lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely. Hand over your heart, repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Quady.
Here.
Director McMillan is absent.
She stepped out.
Early. Director Pacala.
Yes.
Director Robert.
Yes.
Director Avila.
Here. Okay, thank you. We have a quorum. Up next, do we have members of the public? Attendance? Yes, we do. Okay. This portion of the agenda may be utilized by any member of the public to address the board of directors on any matter within the jurisdiction of the board that does not appear on the agenda and on matters that are on the agenda that are not designated as action items. Depending on the subject matter, the board of directors may be unable to respond at this time or until a specific topic is placed on the agenda at a future Calleguas board meeting. In accordance with the Ralph M. Brown Act, please limit remarks to 3 minutes. If there are members of the public online who wish to comment, please raise your hand. And we do not have any raised hands. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have, do we have any items to be added to the agenda?
No.
We do not. Has the board had time to review the agenda?
Yes.
Any recommended changes, deletions, or items to be taken out of order? All right, up next, with that, I am closing the open session and opening closed session. Yeah, Walton, you're gonna get us out of this closed session,
Yeah,
the usual?
as to, are we back?
Yep,
As to
we're-
5A, the board received an update from council and no action was taken.
Thank you. And with that, we're closing the closed session and reopening open session. Thank you, council. Up next, we have presentations. Item A, recognition, Sean Crane, instrumentation technician in the Control Systems Division for achieving grade 2 water treatment plant operator certification from the State Water Resource Control Board Division of Drinking Water.
Thank you, board. So I do want to bring attention to some of the efforts that our staff continue to make. And in this instance, it's Sean Crane. He's taken the time, finished the courses and completed his California State Water Treatment Operator 2 certification. So we're very proud of that. I'd like to bring Sean up here.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Sean. So he's our newest treatment operator 2 within the control systems. So
I love working here. Couldn't be more proud to be an employee of Calleguas. I made the transition about 5 years ago, a huge career shift, and not a day goes by that I'm not enthralled to be here. Learning every day, great people to work with, great leadership. We know our direction and we come to work every day to keep completing that. Thank you.
Yes, I'm really, really glad to hear that. Thank you for being part of Calleguas and we appreciate everything you do every day. Any other?
Well, I just want to congratulations. I'm glad that you enjoy working in the water field. And keep working hard and keep moving up the ladder.
Thank you for your engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, up next, I'm gonna make a small change because we do have a guest here for item 8B. I'm gonna go ahead, if the board is okay with it, move action item 8B up next. Get that one out of the way and that way we don't keep our guest waiting. Any objections?
Is 8B, you said we have a guest for 8B?
We have Fox Canyon and participants and also Rob Hampson from Fox Canyon GMA.
Yeah, no objection to moving.
Right, and with that, I am bringing up item 8B, discussion regarding preparations of the Calleguas Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project Operations Plan and cost share agreement with Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency.
Yeah, great. Thanks. As presented in the board memo in your packet, and as you know, we've been working with the GMA and a landowner representative on the ASO study group for several months to collaboratively scope this aquifer storage and recovery project operations plan. It's a requirement of the judgment that we do this plan. So it's really been scoped by the members of the ASR study group to conform exactly with the judgment as it's laid out, the project operations plan laid out in the judgment. The second action in the item before you today is to approve a cost share agreement with Fox Canyon because the judgment also requires that we split the cost 80-20 with the GMA. We are essentially done with that cost share agreement. We're just dotting some i's. So we're requesting that the board authorize the general manager to enter into that cost share agreement. Happy to answer questions from the board.
Well, thank you, Ian, and for discussion. Any discussion by the board?
I just have a comment. I think it's a good process that you're recommending, where we have 3 experts, all hydrogeologists. When 3 experts are looking at it and coming up with a recommendation, I think that will go a long way in other people accepting what's being done here with the SR project. I say that because in the past, we have had some issues with the SR project a long time ago, not recently. So there's people out there still keep asking me questions, what's going on with this? So more information out to the public is better. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bacala. Okay, with that, I'm gonna open it up for public comment. If any member of the public would like to comment on this action item, please raise your hand. Okay, I see no raised hands. Go ahead and call for a motion.
I make sure.
Okay, we have a first and a second.
I was gonna say, I'll motion to authorize the general manager to enter into a cost sharing agreement with Fox Canyon GMA with regards to the ASR
And to approve Brian Bondi.
and to approve Brian Bundy.
Second.
First and a second, roll call, please.
Director Quady,
Aye.
Director McMillan,
Aye, I would acknowledge my presence. Blake?
Director PiCullough,
Yes.
Director Robert,
Yes.
Director Avila.
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you.
With that, we're moving back to consent calendar. Has everybody had time to review the consent calendar, and would anybody like to pull any of the action items out for discussion?
Well, Mr. President, I don't have anything to pull, but I do have questions on item B, C, D, and E.
B, C, D, and E. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's get started on item B.
If other members have comments, I'll first.
Let's go with item B, and you could kick it off, and anybody else has questions, they could jump in.
Okay. On payment register, page number 5. There's a payment of $1,775 to ConnectWise LLC. What type of services are provided by this vendor?
Good afternoon, Director PiCullough. ConnectWise is our monitoring service, our perch monitoring service that does our online security monitoring platform. So they monitor every aspect of our IT, logs, sign-ins, and everything like that. It's a managed cybersecurity service that we pay through them to handle that on our network.
So this will upgrade the software.
No, that's a monthly recurring charge.
It's a monthly.
It's a monthly recurring charge. And the reason that there's 2 charges on this is this is the last split bill. We were on a contract with them for 100 users in our network, and we have been over that number because of having the 3 interns coming on. So that's why there's a second payment of the $50 to cover the extra 1 or 2 licenses that weren't covered on the original payment.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
On the same page, there's a small amount. There's a water bill refund of $35 to Crestview Mutual Water Company. I guess the question I have is, what is this refund for? $35 to Crestview?
They overpaid
That's the,
water bill, so we are giving back their money. It was easier for us to do that than try to offset it on those.
okay. Thank you.
We don't have a $35 overpayment fee?
That is. On page 8, there's a payment of $29,230 to Micro Age for virtual machine software. What function does virtual machine software perform?
Director PiCullough, thank you for that question. I actually wanted to, that's a very interesting question and one that is an interesting topic. All of our servers in our network, our SCADA servers and our administrative servers are virtual machines. They're not actual physical machines, so they're virtual machines that are riding on server infrastructure. The software that makes that happen is called VMware. Which we've been using for a long time. VMware was recently acquired, a little over a year ago by Broadcom. And Broadcom has become very much problematic to work with and has completely changed their licensing structure for everybody that has these virtual machine software that they've been using for years when it was VMware. With that, we have seen a 400% increase in cost. And that is what this is. This is our annual bill for just the administrative network. Come June, there will be another one for our SCADA network that will be drastically larger than that because it encompasses more virtual machines. But we saw a 400% increase this year. A lot of other companies saw anywhere between a 100 to 1,000% increase in licensing fees for it. It is something that we are looking at and investigating if there is a better alternative methodology to go with in the future. But for right now, that's what works with our network and with our infrastructure that we have.
Okay. Thank you.
And what was the company again? Broadcom.
Yeah. The microwave is the company we paid for.
And Metropolitan's having a problem, a different company.
Last question from me. On page 11, there's another small dollar amount here. There were two $50 payments to Ventura County Sheriff's Office for garnishments. So what is this payment for?
I guess the same question.
Oh, yes, that's already?
Long time.
It happens, so I mean, not everybody wants to know what this is. So occasionally, employees owe money to somebody and they have a garnishment of their wages through the county of Ventura, through the sheriff's department. And so we collect the money off their check and send it to the sheriff.
I see. Thank you.
Is that the same as franchise tax board?
I do believe we also have one for the franchise tax board as well, and that is also a garnishment on somebody's wages.
That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Pacala. Item C.
Oh, item C.
This approve new capital project budget allocation in amount of $164,000 for top station surge relief wall isolation of 638.
Yes, the question I have on that project is, how old is this wafer butterfly valve? How old is it?
How old? I believe that was installed shortly after a recent surge event that we had back in the 90s. So I want to say this is 30 plus years old.
Okay.
Mhm.
How many more wafer butterfly valves do we have in the system?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if we have more than those two. Those are the only two we've identified in engineering, and we're replacing those wafer type valves with butterfly valves because they're not the standard that we typically use. So as far as engineering knows, those are the only two we found.
I guess my question was, if we have more, are we going to look at all the valves to make sure that if there are such valves, they're going to look into replacing if necessary?
Yes, we will look at inventorying all of our valves, which we do, but these are the identified wafer valves.
Okay, well, it's good to know we have only two of those.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. 6 items, also mine.
Okay.
Okay, item D, award the contract for the construction of Somas farm worker housing S&P discharge station.
Oh, I just have one question on that one, which is award of contract is for $462,000. 462.
That is correct, yes.
I believe the discharger paid a deposit of $817,000.
Correct, yes.
The question is, why did we collect almost double than what the construction contract is?
Yeah, so the developer is responsible for the costs of the construction as well as our outside costs. We also have assistance from our materials inspectors, third-party inspectors as well. And those costs also included the SCADA cabinet that we will also be owner furnishing to the contractor, and the contractor will be installing. So all those costs, plus I think we had also a 25% contingency to those costs, and that added.
25% contingency brings it up to higher. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Item E, authorize staff to accept a financial assistance award from the U.S. Port Bureau of Reclamation for the Salinity Management Pipeline Phase 3.
Oh, well, congratulations on another large federal grant for our capital projects. Good job, staff.
Yeah.
My question is, Bureau approved $30 million for SMP/desalter projects. Of the $30 million after this particular grant, how much more money is left for future SMP/desalter projects in Calleguas service area?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer, but I can get that. I can certainly reach out to our US Bureau of Contact and see what is left over for other projects. I will report back.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. And now, we will open up consent calendar for, board discussion. Any board discussion? Okay, no board discussion, public comment. If any member of the public would like to comment on the consent calendar, please raise your hand. Okay, we have no raised hands. Okay, looking for a motion.
Move to consent.
First and second, roll call, please.
Director Quady?
Aye.
Director McMillan?
Aye.
Director Pacala?
Yes.
Director Robert?
Yes.
Director Avila?
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Up next, we have item 8 alpha, public hearing regarding ordinance number 12 covering rules and regulations for water district purveyors within Calleguas Municipal Water District. Okay, is that Dan?
Normally it's been Christine, so I can glad to go up. So we have made some changes to the ordinance 12 in order to accommodate the fact that Metropolitan no longer has a tier 2. And so while we were looking at this, we were making some minor tweaks to the whole ordinance to make sure that it's in compliance with what we're doing currently.
Easy enough. Has everybody on the board had a time to review the changes? And do we have any questions, comments?
I did review it, and the majority of the red liners are all changing from member agency to purveyor in majority of the crossouts. I'm fine with it. I'm ready to make a motion.
I'll note that we're in the public hearing component of this, so the public hearing is open. Directors have talked about it. You can ask for public comment.
Okay. I would like to invite public to make comments at this point. Please raise your hand if you're a member of the public and would like to comment on this action item. Okay, we have no raised hands. With that,
We can close the.
closing the public hearing, and I am looking for a motion.
So moved.
First, second, roll call, please.
Who was second, please? Robert, okay. Director Quady?
Aye.
Director McMillan?
Yes.
Director Pacala?
Yes.
Director Robert?
Yes.
Director Avila?
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Up next, we have reports. First item is February 2026 water use and sales. So Dan Smith. Welcome back.
All right, so the first report I have tonight is the water use and sales for the month of February. So in February, we sold 4,289 acre feet, which is very close to what we had budgeted at 4,370. So good news is we did get a lot of rain during February, but we still had water sales that matching kind of what we expected it to have with the sales based on 75,000. So that was good news. Overall, we're still short, of course, for the water sales for the year. We've brought in about 48,211. And we should be closer to 51,000 acre feet at this point based on the budgeted sales of 75,000. So we're a little behind, but we're not falling behind for the last couple of months. So if you look at the graph for the fiscal year, we see we started off good. Toward the middle, we had some missing data as we actually got a lot of rain during some months that we typically don't get rain. And for January, February, and December, you can see that we've been pretty much on or a little bit above budget. So we're coming back to where we thought we'd be at this point with the water sales, which is good for us. Looking over the last 12 months, you can see that it's kind of just the same thing. We've been hitting a lot of them pretty close to the budget, which is nice to see. And with the month of March being really hot and dry, we could be selling more water this month and maybe we'll make up a little bit of the ground. So looking at the Metropolitan invoice, you can see that water sales were $6.5 million. We did a lot of storage in and out between the well field and Lake Bard. Overall, we added water of $298,000. We have the reconciliation to get to the 6.9 water purchased from Metropolitan. We have a lot of LRP funds in the month of February. That was really due to the fact that we didn't submit any for January. So this is like 2 months for Camry and Camarissa all coming all at once. So that's why it's a little bit larger than normal. So we add all these together and that brings us to the $7.6 million invoice that we have from Metropolitan for the month of February. Going off to the SMP discharge, you can see that we had 44 acre feet of discharge. Budgeted 47, we're right where we expected to be. It's always a little bit less during this time of year, and we can have a budget for that. Overall, for the year, we're still well above what we had budgeted. We're at 583 acre feet, and we should be closer to 514. So we're on pace to beat our budget at this point. Federal power, we did well as also during the month. We did have a lot of downtime, but we generated plenty of electricity when it was working. So we brought in $13,000 and we only budgeted 8,000. So we continue to be very on par for the year. So that's good to see too. We should be definitely hitting budget as we got through these usually rainy months and low flows. Just to kind of look at a quick snapshot of the revenues, you can see we brought $8.8 million in, bringing our total for the year to $92.8 million. This is where we're a little bit short on the water sales, but there is savings because we didn't buy as much water either. Recycled water sales continues to be way above budget. I'm going to be budgeting more for that next year, so we get it closer. The SMP fees continue to be higher than expected as well. So we're at 76%, and we're typically at 65%. And then power generation's pretty darn close to being right where we expected it to be. Looking at our cash and investments, really it was a good month for cash and investments for the month of February. Nothing really stood out to me as to why, other than the fact that we are paying metropolitan bills that are back from December when it's been pretty flat. So when we pay those bills, we're bringing the same amount of money in that we're sending out to metropolitan. So that's a lot of fluctuation happens when we do that. So really we added $2.2 million. Investments continue to be really good for us. You can see we had changes in investments of 767,000. So it's helping us on the cash flow front. That's all I have for this presentation.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Dan. Do we have questions from the board?
Well, the question follow-up, we are doing very good with investments. What has changed though, other than balance paying metropolitan? That's a big change.
For the $2 million difference of addition, I mean, 700,000 is really showing as part of the investment. So that's a big chunk of it. But yes, so when we look at the metropolitan bill, December was a rainier month. So the metropolitan bill was less than normal. And so when we bill at a different time than when we pay Met. Met we pay back between 2 months. So we're paying December's bill in February. But we're billing January's bills to our purveyors. So the collection versus the payment's a little bit off, and there's some differences sometimes that allow us to either collect more money or we actually send more money out, depending on what time of year it is.
But as for the investment income itself, we haven't changed the policy. It's still same.
It is, and that $767,000 can be reflecting some of the market value changes in the investments. And so, I mean, those go up and down constantly. And so you'll see the investments kind of swing sometimes. And you'll see that on the investment when I talk about the financial statements. And I show you the investments and they'll say that there's a large unrealized gain on those investments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, transfer to Las Virgenes. Right? That's is that a test of the connection?
Oh, yeah. So every month there's water flowing to Las Virgenes as a way to keep the pumps going. So we have to always be sending them, and then they're going to send us back when they start testing. They actually, I don't believe, have started up the interconnection on their side yet to send money back. So we're tracking all the water, which is why it shows up there, because we want to know how much water we've given them, because that when they start doing it, they can give us all our water back.
Good.
So we're keeping track of it. I know what we're waiting for.
Saying we're giving them free water.
We're not giving it to them because they don't pay us.
All right, any other comments? Okay, thank you, Dan. Up next, we have cost of service study and Calleguas Metropolitan Water District rate update. Welcome back, Dan.
Well, fortunately, I'm gonna actually turn this over to Henry for the start of this.
Good evening, board. It's a pleasure to introduce the cost of service study, the brief excursion over to the Metropolitan Water District budget. It's very easy to make the metropolitan budget issues complicated. it's more difficult to make them easy to understand. And so my intent in the next 3 slides is to give you a high level overview of what is really driving the metropolitan budget and the current status. So with that, it really comes down to, from my perspective, 3 different issues: reliability, portability, then the basic context of uncertainty that is affecting the future for metropolitan. So in terms of reliability, they have aging infrastructure, right? The Colorado River Aqueduct is approaching 100. And a lot of their infrastructure needs more and more R&R in order to avoid the kind of repairs that are more costly and interrupt operations. So that is a huge element within the budget of metropolitan. In addition, for that type of reliability, you're all familiar with the challenges. Excuse me.
Can I ask you a question as you're going through, or should I wait until the presentation?
Go ahead.
The question about Pure Water Southern California, how long ago was this project approved by MWD board?
It was decades ago.
Okay.
Essentially, it was before the 2022 discovery that they had state water project dependent areas. It's been a long-standing project. But I'll take it. Why don't I pause between the different topic areas and then we can view them as a whole.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. So yeah, Metropolitan's primary mission has been to import water into Southern California. But with the climate changes that have affected the State Water Project and the Colorado River, we've seen greater variability in their ability to deliver the same amount of water. And as a result of that, that poses a reliability problem for Metropolitan. In an earlier IRP, they identified this as a problem and got the board's policy change to be able to develop local supplies. That was where Pure Water Southern California was born. The idea that Metropolitan did not necessarily need to limit itself to imported water supplies, but could develop supplies within the metropolitan service area. So as part of a joint effort with the county sanitation districts of Los Angeles County, they developed Pure Water. It's been a long-standing project. It's taken, I'm not sure if it was decades, but I think over a decade to develop. And it's been a long-standing project of Metropolitan. It promised to bring a certain amount of reliability because it is on this side of all the major faults that affect the imported water supplies. And it's also not affected by hydrology. That said, it is very expensive as an additional source of supply. So that's part of the reliability portfolio that they're looking at. And then also they're investing, they have a problem with operational flexibility. The changes in how deliveries come through the State Water Project and through the Colorado River Aqueduct mean that they have different amounts coming from different places at different times than they had historically. And we discovered that most recently in 2022. So they have major issues with reliability. They also have issues in terms of financial sustainability and affordability. The demands on Metropolitan have essentially flatlined. Every budget assumption for forward sales has been higher than what has actually been realized. And with this budget, they're really accepting that going out into the future, demands will be relatively flat. What does that have to do with financial sustainability? Well, primarily they are dependent on sales as a variable revenue to support their work. So with major issues in reliability to be invested in, that flattening the demand presents a problem for financial sustainability. As part of the business model that the general managers worked on last year, Metropolitan has adopted new reserve policies and sales assumptions that will correct kind of the problems that they've experienced over the last 3 to 4 years, where they depleted reserves at an alarming rate and brought it down to their minimum reserves. So they're now back in the process of building up those reserves and having more conservative sales assumptions. The other issue that they're dealing with in terms of sustainability overall is this balance between fixed costs and fixed revenues. And I know that your board has an interest in that as well. For Metropolitan, particularly for the treated water rate, trying to get those fixed costs covered by fixed revenues is an important part of the sustainability of that particular budget function. And also looking ahead, there's potential for additional large future investments in order to shore up reliability. I add here structural uncertainty because all of these issues, particularly the water supply reliability from outside Metropolitan, and the ability of being able to manage how other people relate to Metropolitan, in other words, what the member agencies, the actions they take in response to it, are largely outside of Metropolitan's control. And so their ability to know what to invest in and when to invest in it has this essential uncertainty in it. If you recall, those of you, I'm looking at Director Quady and Director Pacala, a few decades back in the past, at the end of the 20th century, there was a belief that there's going to be an unlimited demand for water that was going to finance all the future supply that we would ever need. And that's changed, and that's no longer the case. It's easier to plan when you can count on future revenues from future sales, and you know that you can shore up your supplies. It's harder to plan when you don't have those things in place. So how are these being addressed in the budget? I think and I have to preface this by saying that the Metropolitan Board is not settled in on their rate alternatives in their budget yet. That's to come. So I'm trying to read the room, and we'll check in with Director McMillan at the end of my presentation to get her sense of it. But over the last 2 years, there's been a general consensus that Metropolitan needs to keep its existing system working. Without the Metropolitan system, we have nothing from them. In terms of the Colorado River and the State Water Project, these are all both developing issues. These contribute to the uncertainty. Pure Water Southern California was a project that had tremendous support as potentially the largest recycled water project in the United States. Increasingly, it's being viewed as too costly to pursue at this time. So we see a lot of discussion about staging it or reducing it or taking the grant money that's available to complete some of the design work, essentially deferring the decision to go ahead with that expense. And then finally, investing in operational flexibility. The current budget includes the $250 million that the board allocated to address the state water project dependent areas. So that's good. We're in that. There's continuing studies to address that particular part as well. So in terms of flattening of future demands, this is reflected in the budget discussion is how much Metropolitan should be funding conservation. For many board members, they say, we're here, we're there, got it. And so you see budget proposals that will fund conservation at the current level necessary to match grant funding that we receive for conservation. Other member agencies would like to see more conservation. And so that is an issue that's still under discussion. The newly adopted reserve policies and sales assumptions, those are in place with phased implementation. One member agency, the City of Los Angeles, would like to revisit some of those policies that have already been adopted, and we'll see what kind of progress they make on that. The balance of fixed costs and fixed revenues. There are many proposals to increase the property tax increment that is available to Metropolitan. This is a voter-approved ability to assess property. It's already been approved, and they have the ability to increase the amount up to the costs to cover state water project expenses. And so there's a variety of proposals that would take it above the current 0.07% up to 1%. And everything in between. So you have a scale that you can choose from. And then in terms of the future investments, the idea that the board should defer a decision on pure water and make decisions about the state water project, the Delta Conveyance project, and whatever's in the future of Colorado. There's a sense that these are now ripe for final decision, but they will be as time goes on. So that's the state of play. Metropolitan Board has not officially narrowed the rate alternatives, but there's a whole plate of alternatives that would take the current average 8.5 rate increase to a scale as low as 6.0, which is a good direction for that average rate increase to be moving. There's even an alternative being floated by one member agency that would probably take it below that 6.0. And Dan can show us how that gets translated into rates for Calleguas. Looking ahead, next week there'll be a finance committee workshop, and we anticipate that the alternatives will be narrowed. The finance manager is hoping that they'll come away with 2 or 3 for the board to look at, and we'll find out about that. And then April 14th, they will adopt a budget and the associated rates. There is the property tax increment that will be included as a budget assumption. But the action to fix the property tax increment happens in August, following the county's determination of what the assessed valuation is of property. So structural uncertainty, it continues. I was going to say for the foreseeable future, but I guess the unforeseeable future is appropriate in this particular context. Metropolitan is learning how to make decisions in that context, but that continues to be a challenge, right? Because we like to make decisions with all the information. And what we are finding is that the present moment that we're living in, we have to make the best decision we can with the available information under the financial constraints we face. So that is the end of my Metropolitan update. I told Director McMillan I would defer to her if she had any closing remarks as our Metropolitan Director.
Coming up with alternatives where we see the numbers actually dropping.
Yes.
And the board has really been pensive in thinking about this. Director Seckel came up with his own alternative, which hopefully we'll see how that compares. So it's looking good. Dan probably feels a lot better.
We feel a lot better when I see this.
Very good.
As they defer the pure water, has anything changed on the dollars per acre foot? Into what they project coming out of even a completed pilot study?
Yeah, the cost per acre foot, continues to be high. but it's complicated by a number of other factors. And part of those factors is the initial 45 million gallon a day alternative. 30 million gallons a day is not new water. It simply replaces water that is currently being recycled. So if you factor that in, it increases the cost per acre foot. The other difficulty is that it plays a role in the Colorado River negotiations, and there's some indications that those parties would pay full cost for that water. But then you have started to build a project that doesn't really deliver any new water to Metropolitan. So those issues were kind of surfaced at the last Pure Water. The Metropolitan staff said, yeah, we will have to figure that out. But I think that kind of set a ripple through the board that maybe this isn't ready for a final go-ahead decision at this point. They did adopt the EIR, which allows the project to be defined for CEQA purposes, and it kind of keeps it in place in terms of getting grant funding or whatever else you might need in order to further provide the information to make those decisions. But I have sensed a general cooling off of enthusiasm for Pure Water. But we'll see, right? I don't want to prejudge any deliberative board as to what its decision may be.
Well, it's interesting you went back to it has more of a influence on what's happening with the Colorado.
It could be a valuable negotiating tool, but the Arizona has demands for its cities that is going to be hard to meet. But the question is, whether this is a viable option for them.
There'll be no money coming from those states to maybe encourage something like Pure Water.
Yeah, they would be willing to pay. I mean, Metropolitan isn't going to build this to give away the water.
Okay. Other questions from the board, Director Kelly?
Yeah, thank you. Just a comment. It's encouraging to see that Metropolitan Board is looking into reducing the base rate 8.5 as low as 6%. That's very encouraging. I have a question about the tax roll. So April 18th, when Metropolitan considers this tax roll, are they looking into transfer 100% of the state water project costs to fixed costs, or incrementally they're going to transfer?
Yeah, that decision has not been made. It currently stands at a 0.07% increment. It could increase up to 1%, but the finance manager doesn't want to increase it to above the permissible cost to be recovered. And because the assessed valuation moves up and down, that's you want to have a little bit of a buffer there. But the actual budget assumption for what that rate will be discussed at the March 24th and the April 14th meetings.
So we, the purveyors and Calleguas, would not know until the tax roll, county assessor assesses how much? Is that how that works?
They would make a budget assumption, and then there's always the possibility that the board would change its mind in August. It has never done that so far. But that's how that plays out.
Thank you.
I appreciate you consolidating all the information and moving parts into a digestible format for us. So thank you.
Yeah, anytime you want it more complicated and I'll be talking, I can do that as well.
I like that you talk slow so that gives us time to. Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, I'll try to talk slow too. I don't know.
Oh,
I
man.
keep going sometimes on this stuff because I've been working on it so much that I forget. So again, I'm going to start going through this. Some of this stuff, the two members of the finance committee have seen because there are a lot of sides that I'm representing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start off just as a reminder about what are variable revenues and fixed revenues. The variable revenues for this purpose, considering the tier one charges, recycled water, the SMP, which are all done on definitely volumetric basis. And then also power generation and pumping charges because they're based on the fact that we're pumping water through the system and they're generating the revenue either through the generation or through the pumping charges where we collect it on the bills. When we talk about the fixed revenues, those are a lot of them are the ones that we do have as coming from Metropolitan at this, which is the capacity charge and the RTS. We do add something on the capacity charge when we go to the purveyors for us personally for emergency assets that we have been building to make sure we have money to build these assets when there's a time of an outage, really was where it started. And so that people could get off of us during the summer, during an outage, we have money for systems in place. We also consider the LRP funds because those are projects that were done by other agencies that we just get a portion of based on something we've built. And then interest and property taxes and grants, those are all just kind of set. They're not based on anything from the water sales. So that's considered a fixed revenue as well. We've done a lot of input. I know we've talked about this. We've had 3 meetings so far with the purveyors. I know there's going to be another one this month. So we're constantly talking to them, letting them know what's going on. We've still got all the letters and comments coming in. The city of Camarillo did show up at the finance committee and listen to the presentation at that point, which is mostly what I'm going to be presenting here. So we've had a lot of discussions and we've also then got a lot of information from them. Like how much do we want to be charging for the potential fixed charges? They did not like the 100%, which is why we're back here right now. And they were also making points that there's a negative impact on the conservation and it can negatively impact low income residents. The more fixed charges we have, the more we're impacting these two things that do affect some of our purveyors. We wanted to know if implemented, what's the timing of the new fixed charge would be best for them as well. And we're going to discuss that and then how to allocate this fixed charge as well as other alternatives that were proposed instead of the fixed charges. And then we'll get into all that after some of these metropolitan rates. So I'm going to first talk about, this is where we were before we had the metropolitan rates. So you can see that when we were looking at 100%, we were looking to collect in 2027, $15 million. And by the time we got out 10 years, it's going up to $21 million. The purveyors were like, that's a lot to be hitting us with right at this time. So they liked the 80% or something less. And I was kind of saying, how about 80%, which would drop this basically in half because currently we're about 60%. And to get to 60, 100 and you drop in the middle, it drops the amount that you need by half. So you can see that we were looking more at $7 million to $9 million. And then Metropolitan came along. And that kind of changed some of what we were thinking about. So if you remember this slide, this is the one that we're still basing all of these numbers you see in this presentation. So I'm not looking at talking about those 8.5s, the 6% that they may be coming out with because nothing's set. We don't even have this slide for any of the other alternatives that we've talked about. This is the only one that's been presented so far. So we use that. The one thing I'm pointing out is that in there, you can see the highlight in the red are the 3 new treatment charges that we have coming from Metropolitan. And even with all this discussion we're having, I don't see that changing. That is something that's new for Metropolitan that is going to be on the treated water side, not the untreated water side. And that's where a lot of this discussion is going with the changes that are coming, or more on the untreated water side. It's all going to be affecting those rates and not the treated water rate. This is what we've seen in the past as we've been dealing with MET rates in previous years. So that is a big change for us. And we've seen this slide before a little bit. I've kind of presented this. So there's a big change in some of these rates because the first year that they're doing this is this year. And they're using a different matrix to charge everybody than they're going to use in the next year. So these rates are definitely moving around some. But this one, I think I've got down solid enough that I'm going to present what I'm thinking what the dollar amounts are going to be. I know for sure that we're going to be getting $10.6 million in 2027, calendar year 27. And then looking at where our sales were, our CFS, all of the stuff that they're really going to be charging us, I do see it dropping a little bit in the next calendar year in 28. The CFS, the max is going to be set. We're selling less water this year. We're not going to have an increase in CFS. We shouldn't. When we look at the 10-year max minus our average, that should actually benefit us because we sell a lot of times right around the same amount of water every year. We don't vary that much, except in a drought year when we have to cut way down. So with that, I've kind of calculated based on the 77,000 as our peak, and then subtracting out the average, we end up with the less number, and I think that's going to benefit us, of course. Middle one up there is the smallest one they're allocating to us, so it has the least effect. But I think that the next one down, it's also going to decrease a little because I don't see our max changing for the next 5 years if we continue to do basically what are in my projections. I'm projecting 73,000 acre feet roughly every year. And last year we hit 77 with them, partly because we put water in the well field. So when we make decisions about storing water in the well field or storing water anyplace, that does affect our Met sales because that is sales to them, which then affects our treated water surcharge or fixed charges here. So just something to keep in mind as we start making future decisions, that it does affect some of these treated fixed charges as well. Well, I'm looking at $9.5 million roughly in 2028 calendar year. So it is going to go down a little bit is my estimate. So here's our before the Met rates. And then once the Met rates came in, you can see that there's quite a bit of difference between what the 100% was before and after. We went from, I'm going to use the 28 numbers because the 20 numbers, 27 numbers, it's a half a year when you're looking at fiscal year stuff. But in 28, you can see it's going from 16 million up to 25. So it's going up quite a bit when we're talking about this new fixed charge. That's the $9 million essentially. And the 80% is going from 7 million to the $14 million. So it's less, but it's still a big number. And so now we're looking at that 80% actually getting closer to where it was at 100% before. So it's a big difference. And with that, I started coming up with a third scenario for us to kind of consider, which is just trying to collect the metropolitan rate as well, the new fixed charge for metropolitan. It's what we've always done. We've always passed through all of the Met charges. And the problem with the Met charge too is that it's sort of an unknown because we don't know exactly how it's going to play out as you start building a history. Because more fixed charges on all of their member agencies could change the way they operate, which would then affect us because we're not really going to change. As all we can get is the treated water. So what the other member agencies do could put more charges on us just by them changing their behaviors. And we don't know what that's going to look like yet. That's going to take time for us to figure. So I kind of put this one in there to kind of give us a starting point to kind of focus on, this is what we've always done. We've always passed the metropolitan treated charges through. And it's something that I know that the purveyors are at least familiar with rather than trying to go out and collect more than over above what Metropolitan's doing. Before Metropolitan did this, I think we had a really good shot of going for the 80%, but this is going to kind of change what they're going to be, have a feeling be able to go for. So we'll see. I haven't really showed them all of these slides yet. That's the next meeting. I know we've talked about this one before. So looking at all the other wholesale agencies, this is where we are currently with the 25-26 budget. We're at about 60%. That's where I got that 60% I kind of mentioned before, trying to move from 60 to 80. So we're down pretty good in the list. We're, at about 65% percentage mark. So we're better than 65% of other water agencies that are on this list. I'm going to point out that Metropolitan, if you look way at the top, they're the second one because they're only at 22%, which is why they're really trying to get more fixed charges and trying to collect more on the property taxes because they've got a big disparity on their fixed revenues versus fixed expenses. When Metropolitan came out with their new fixed charges, that raised what we would be actually paying. And if we do nothing with these fixed revenues, we're going to be down to 51%. So it is going to drop us if we do nothing. If we then start charging, I'm just using picking up the Metropolitan fixed charge. If we start picking that up for the year, it's going to take us up to 71%, which is still very respectable. And we're in the, 80th percentile now. And if we did up to the 80%, we're still right at this mark. It's not really moving because there's nobody between 71 and 80. The next one up there is 88%. And that's getting pretty high as well. You can see that there aren't many agencies that are actually trying to get 100%. It's really hard to accomplish with, especially with wholesale. So we're in good shape compared to other agencies.
What's happening with the 160 and 170%.
I really don't know, but obviously they probably don't have a variable component, and so they're collecting everything they need, capital, operating on a fixed charge.
Okay.
It is interesting. So the other thing I'm going to point out is kind of what's happening with Metropolitan's fixed charges in general. So the capacity charge, the CC and the RTS, you can see that, it's going to be $20 million just alone what we're going to be charging out for that. And in the next 5 years, it's going to on its own raise up 45. You throw on that Metropolitan new fixed water or treated water fixed charge, in 5 years, it's going up almost double everything we're collecting, giving over to Metropolitan. So we're looking at some large increases. Now I'm going to caveat that though, too, that some of this may change as like if pure water doesn't go forward, it's going to you're going to see some of these charges drop. But if it does, Metropolitan has a slew of projects back behind this. So if they don't do pure water, chances are they're going to find something else to put into the rates and start working on. So it's just a matter of what's coming down. And I think they're getting to the point where they're not going to actually see it in the rates until it's approved by the board, which is a better way because it's not like scaring everybody like, hey, 9% increases when the board hasn't even approved the project yet. And if we went for the 80%, you're going to see that we would be almost 1.5 times we're doing now by the time the 5 years gets here. So we're looking at a lot of fixed costs that are going to be flowing through us onto the purveyors already as well. So that just leads me to my first question. I'm going to do this different than I did at the Finance Committee meeting. I'm going to take breaks after each one of these things so we can kind of discuss it in case there's questions and not wait to the end. And so really there was 3 questions that we're kind of looking at. The 100% fixed cost recovery was the first thing that was proposed by the board that we took back to the purveyors, and they were kind of like, no, we don't really like that much. Can we do something different? So we came up with the other 2. We came up with the 80% fixed cost recovery. That was the potential. And then also recovered the new treated water fixed charge for Metropolitan, which would put us at 71%. Out of the committee, we came to kind of go for the 80%. So I'm just looking because I'm kind of stuck with this cost of service study until I get direction from the board on how we want to proceed, because I don't want to proceed down all these different paths and try to have to present this all, each one of these. I kind of want to get more of a direction so that we can go forward with the cost of service study, develop this stuff, and then come back with a solid plan that comes to the purveyors and to the board. Any questions on this section?
Questions from the board?
We've only looked at fixed percentages. We haven't looked at kind of an angled scale of ramp up.
The phase in?
Yeah.
That's the next one.
Okay. All right.
So what I got on this that's coming up. So we got to make this decision first, where we want to be, because that's the phase in kind of affects which one we pick. And then we're going to talk about the allocation, and then we're going to talk about the other 2 contributions that came out of from the purveyors.
Okay. Other questions or comments from the board?
Well, Dan, as I have discussed with you, I thought 100% was a higher level. We should go lower than 100%. Now you're coming with a recommendation of 80%. You came up with a recommendation at the Finance Committee, 80%.
All right, so maybe came up with the 80%.
Now, this recover new MWD treated 71. Could you please walk me through that again?
So if we collect 80%, we would be collecting all of the Metropolitan treated water fixed charge and then
pass through.
It'd be like a pass through. And I would actually, if we do the 80%, I'm going to do 2 fixed charges. Because I want to be capturing that one specifically and then anything up and above that.
Yep.
So the 71% says, I'm not going to capture anything additional. I'm just going to work on capturing the treated water fixed charge that Metropolitan is sending to us. We're going to take it and pass it through to the purveyors.
Can you clarify what would be considered additional?
Additional? Well, if we just do the MWD treated water fixed charge recovery, we'll end up at a 71% fixed cost ratio where we're covering 71% of our fixed.
Yeah, I understand that, but
So it's at 9%. So then I'm going for 80. And so there's a difference between how much.
What's that 9% being accounting for? That's our fixed cost of operation.
Well, yes, so what's considered fixed costs? All of admin.
Right. Yeah.
Everything that we do as far as salaries, benefits, consulting, outside services, we debating, all of that's considered a fixed cost.
And
As well as the RTS, the capacity charge, and now the treated water.
I think I know the answer, but does the 9%, would that cover that or was that not enough?
Not going to cover all of it.
Okay. Yeah.
So a lot of that's also already covered by property taxes that we collect on everybody that lives in the district. And also the interest that we're receiving. That's where the revenues from that first slide comes in. All of those are considered the fixed revenues that offset some of those costs already, which is why we're at 60% recovery and not less, because we've got a good chunk that we get from property taxes and interest that cover a lot of these. If we start, I mean, right now, interest is high too. And if interest starts to go down because the market goes down, that's going to put more on these fixed charges that's going to go out to the purveyors because that
Offsetting.
we're going to, right now, it's offsetting it. And right now, out of my 15 years, this is probably the most interest that we've been earning on investments because interest rates have been very low for many years.
Yeah. I have one, if nobody else has anything, I did hear from a couple of purveyors and a lot of their concerns that I heard back was conservation. Well, my argument to that is conservation is only going to compound this because conservation is going to reduce further dependency on our district. And either rates are going to go up or we're going to have to increase operational costs at that point with less water being used from our system. So I personally do. I wish we had a way to do the 100%, but I think it would be a little bit drastic with the new metropolitan rates. So I agree with the 80 from the committee.
Yeah, well, if I may, Mr. President, as far as the conservation though, when we talk about conservation, we're also looking into producing local water supplies, correct?
Yeah.
To me, if you conserve, if you look at that cost per acre foot, it may be less than producing local water supply. So really, we are creating more water supply locally by conserving water, especially turf replacement, for example. That's like a semi-permanent.
Well, conservation, turf replacement, we're giving people rebates to use less water from us,
Right.
which I don't see that as the same. I see them as two parallel paths with different endings, right? If we're looking at building a desal plant, we're gonna be charging them for the cost of the operation of that desal plant. If we're giving people, rebates for conservation and they remove their turf, if they install, faucets or toilets that are going to conserve water, that means they're using less water from our system and it's going to increase our rates in the end. So it's two different endings depending on which way you go.
Well, at the end of the day, ratepayers are paying our rates, right? By conserving.
Absolutely. And the infrastructure is here, whether they're using it or not, and those costs have to be paid one way.
Anyway, that's conservation is some other time. We'll then come back to our board. Now, going back to this fixed charge, you mentioned when you look at the fixed cost, you're looking entire, you said consultant contracts, you said administration, every one of them is lumped into fixed costs. Is that what you said?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Is consultant contract a fixed cost that varies?
Well, it varies, but if we spend money on that consultant, it's not paid through a variable rate that's collected from the purveyors.
Right.
We don't do more or less based on how much water we sell.
Right.
What my experience with the fixed costs is meter reading, for example, you have to read the meter costs. That's how purveyors were using the fixed costs to develop their fixed cost portion of the water rate. They were not including the staff charges, for example. Administrative costs were not part of the fixed costs. But here, what I'm seeing is all of these are lumped into this.
They may not be doing it to calculate how much they're putting on that fixed charge, but it is a fixed charge. All that staff time is fixed. It's not based on the amount of water that they're purchasing. It's just a fixed cost for the staff time that's needed for the meter reading. So like on this 80%. So our other option was be, okay, we want to capture all of metropolitans. And then we also want to capture something that's specific and call that a fixed charge. And so that the purveyors know that a finance, let's just use them, we're going to charge you for the finance of getting your bills out. And they'd say, we're going to put that on your bill as a fixed charge. So it's, maybe they don't say it's not all of admin, but finance would be a fixed charge.
Yes.
So that going to 80%, the difference between what Matt's doing and the 80% is just a sort of a general for us. We didn't identify something specific. We're saying we just want to get to that 80%. So we're going to use that number to calculate it. We aren't looking for specific costs and trying to call that as the fix.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on this topic, I'm gonna go ahead and call for break. I see a lot of people getting up, so go 5 minutes and we'll be back. Ready? All right, thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the 5-minute break or a little bit longer than that. And you following this, thank you. You're welcome. Go ahead and call this meeting back to order. And Dan Smith, pick up where we left off, please.
All right, so I think we left off as I'd like board consensus that we're doing 80%. We good? Know what I'm hearing? Okay.
I'll go with
Yeah, I just giving everybody a chance.
Just one last thing, as far as the purveyor meetings and the purveyors that have attended the finance committees, what was the general consensus with regards to the 80%? Was that well received or was there still pushback?
It was still received, but it was still at the lower number. We haven't really talked too much since the Metropolitan. We sort of talked about the Metropolitan, but I haven't gone back to them and done some of this. So we'll see how this goes at March 26th. Purveyor meeting, because I'll be presenting what the board, I mean, I'm not going to really go into the other options. I'm going to be saying this is what the board has directed me to do.
I think it's a good position to establish now. Of course, as things change, we can adjust. I think this is a good place to kind of focus our energy.
So that's my goal is to, at the March 26th, is to say, this was the last direction from the board. This is what I'm going forward with. What do you guys think? That's why I want to get this more focused. You know, I can't keep showing everybody all these options when
Right.
it's the board that's really sort of saying, hey, this is where we want you to be.
Well, and I kind of hope it's a showing, responding.
Yeah. It's definitely less than what we had originally came to them with. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, well, this is the first time we are discussing the fixed charges. Initially, when it was 100%, I thought it should be lower. I still think it should be lower than 80% since the finance committee already recommended. I'll go with 80% for this year. Next year, I would like to look at what should be in the fixed costs. Actually, when you start the process, should 100% of the staffing costs should be in the fixed costs. I'm saying next year I'm recommending we should look at it.
Okay.
That's all.
So you would mean break down the fixed charge
Right.
from what it is now
Like which departments,
and figure out what we want.
what's really fixed.
100%.
It's not variable.
Yeah.
It doesn't vary based on how much water we're selling.
It's not very, for example, suddenly we need more people or less people. Let's say you don't need all the staff. That means that you don't need as much. The variable, that to me is a variable thing. When
But it's not variable based on water.
staff in fixed costs.
No.
It's a fixed budget to be
I
approved.
think when it comes down to the fixed cost recovery versus variable, you're basically just trying to top a variable income to account for a fixed thing. If you reduce the fixed cost, you increase the variable cost and you don't do it as one for one. Realistically, you end up kind of paying the same. It just depends on your specific use based off of your area. But this is just a better math. I mean, the more you recover fixed costs, the cleaner the math is. But realistically, you're still going to pay the same because the cost to supply water and the cost to receive it. Now, of course, that changes based off of individual specific perspectives and use cases, but
The way I like to say with the variable fixed costs is that if we sold no water, I mean, could we not have anybody working? We'd still have the same cost for everybody that's working right now. If water sales just dropped off, our costs are still there. That's why they're fixed.
well, whoever was buying that last gallon of water would have all the costs, right? So,
Right.
It's not exactly comparable to a retail system either, because our fixed costs are based on a rolling 10-year, maybe moving to 5-year average. So they are still based on volumetric. So you do have, you as a retailer, as a purveyor, have some control depending on what's available to your local resource developed to offset our water. But there are the Crestviews and the zones who don't take a ton of water from us on a regular basis may not have a large fixed fee. So there are, irrespective of how much, whether it's 70, 30, 80, 20, there still are things that purveyors can do to control their own destiny.
Which is still going back to rewarding conservation. Technically. I mean, if a purveyor were to conserve over that evaluation period, then they would have a lower fixed cost because that's the average is being based off of.
Right, whether they achieve lower demands on Calleguas because of conservation or local resource development, the effect is the same.
Yeah.
That our costs are spread over the rest of the acre feet that we sell to everyone else.
Which boils down to purveyor's impact on Calleguas's delivery. Interesting.
But each of the purveyors have their own fixed to variable.
Sure. Yes. So let me throw a wrench in there. Let's say a purveyor develops their own for 100%. They find a water spring, 100%. They can use their own water. We still have the infrastructure that purveyor. The math breaks down.
10 years from now, under their current,
Right.
they would
I
be
guess
paying
that's-
standby charges for their meter stations.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of goes back to the other thing I had brought up that, maybe this shouldn't be based off of rolling average, it's but who depends on our infrastructure, we're here for them whether they need it or not. And
Yeah.
maybe it should be based off of population, like I had asked before, right? So
We'll get to that. We'll get into discussion. That's,
I didn't want to lead that card, but I've got it written down as well.
let me talk about the phase in first.
yeah,
Thanks.
So with that, one of the things that the purveyors were really asking for really too is to phase it in, don't hit them all with that $10 million all at once. And so we're kind of looking at a phase in. The other thing they were also asking is, can we push this off at least a year? So instead of trying to do it with this water rate cycle that I am working on right now in 2027, to kind of push it off into 2028. So that gives them more time to develop their plans. A lot of them have to go through all the 218 process in order to get their rates adjusted. Some of this will be passed through, and I think some of them can handle it that way. But trying to be, respectful of all of the purveyors and give them the time. I've kind of developed this phase-in plan. I have two of them. It's really either the 5-year plan or the 4-year plan. And it's 4 years with the first year being 0, or 5 years with the first year being 0. So the first year is 0 for the 5-year. After that, it's like 25%, then up to 50%, then up to 75%. Until in the final year in 2031 in the 5-year that you're actually up to the $16 million, which is the full amount. The ones I have circled there are actually where we start recovering that new fixed charge in full. Because it's like $10 million. And so with the 5-year, we're hitting the 2030 mark. And I'm comfortable with the 2030 mark with that, just to make sure we're capturing it. If we were going to do just the metropolitan, I would say we'd have to do the 4-year because I want to capture in that 4th year. So this still captures it in the 4th year. So when we're looking at the phase in, I would say since we're doing the 80%, we should phase it in for them at the 5-year mark. We're capturing all of that metropolitan by year 4, which is good because that was a new fixed charge for us, which is something that I definitely want to be recovering. Because after that, it's something that we're now recovering that we used to be on the variable side that we're going to try to recover on a fixed side. Yes.
The savings you have in the beginning of the phase in, you pay on the back end.
We'll be paying through the variable still. And you're going to see how that's going to affect.
Oh, interesting.
I've got slides for that one too.
Okay.
I've got slides for it all.
Appreciate it.
I support the 5 years.
Okay, so that's what I was kind of looking. I think the 5 years is decent. It gives me what I'm looking for, being able to capture, especially that metropolitan treated water fixed charge in a timely manner, and it's going to be the same for either.
I'm a big fan of that because it allows the cities and purveyors to regroup and organize and start implementing their costs and putting money aside and.
Right. When Metropolitan was talking phasing, I thought they were going to do something like this, but they didn't. It was all at once, and then they're phasing in how they're doing the allocation, and that didn't really work really.
yeah, I mean, it makes it a little difficult for the county or for every city, but I mean, if you look at the grand scheme of things, the total cost at the end is the same. Just spread out a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, I can actually go through those. Okay. So I'm going to show you kind of what the effects on the phase in is. And I'm showing you this because there's something on here too that kind of stands out. So one of the things that's happening with that O&M surcharge, which is really with the area that we're talking about, the O&M surcharge, is that when we talk about the metropolitan treated water charge that we're having as a fixed, what's happened is that Metropolitan's variable rate dropped and their fixed rates went up. So in order for us to then capture that Metropolitan fixed charge on a variable rate, we're going to have to add it to our charge. So what I'm showing is that first little top part shows you what I was expecting our rate increases to be. And this is actually what the rate increases would be if we aren't starting to adjust them and play with them with all of these adjustments we're making because of what we're doing with our fixed charges. So the first things that happens with the treated water charge is that I've got to add $145 per acre foot to our charge to recapture all of that fixed charge, especially in the first year. There's no offset. Right. So that's why you're seeing a 32% increase in our rate. And that's going to happen because I've got to collect that money. I'm not going to just eat $10 million. I don't have the unreserved balance for that. So we're going to have to collect it on the variable side. But you can see as it goes down, I'm going to start every year I drop it. So that's as we start collecting the treated water fixed charge from our purveyors. It's going to drop by $49 the first year, 31, then 35 until after that, it's all done. And it's.
How would that hit them differently than just imposing the charge from the beginning? I mean, it would probably.
If we hit it from the beginning and we just did it as a fixed charge to all the purveyors, our rate wouldn't change. We wouldn't add it in there. We're doing this as a benefit to our purveyors that we're gonna put it on our variable rate and slowly implement it to them so they've got a time to adjust.
It looks like a similar outcome based off of that big jump right in the beginning.
Yeah, so it jumps up big and then it slowly comes back down.
Idea for us, it's the same outcome for covering costs, but
We're still getting the same amount of revenue, whether it's on the variable side or the fixed charge, assuming we hit our sales mark.
realistically, it hits purveyors differently depending on their consumption rates and their specific situations. How does this affect, I guess, is this more of a benefit to purveyors that take more water or less? Less, right?
The fixed charge, they're gonna get the fixed charge no matter what. So I'm not sure if they're gonna adjust and try to take less water. Our retail agency, they do what they're.
Sure. I'm just trying to look at it from the view that the purveyors will be looking at it, which is how does this affect us? And I think what I'm understanding is the more water you buy, the worse it is to have a lower fixed charge because you're going to make it up on the variable charge.
So
the more water you buy, you want your variable charge to be lower. And so you should be a fan of a more one-to-one on the fixed charge. Okay.
I'm following that.
I understand, yeah.
So when you look at the all-in rate, the all-in rate really doesn't change from when we do this because
Right, no.
really it's just switching from it's going from Met's variable rate to our variable rate. So really, it's not really, it's still going up whatever Met's increase was supposed to be going up. So that's what you're going to see first. That's just doing the metropolitan side. Once we put in the other half of this, which is going to be collecting anything up and above that 71% that I've been talking about. So we're going to collect additional fixed charge to get to the 80%. With that, you're not going to see any increases in the first year, but you're going to see every time I start enacting those fixed charges, you're going to see a decrease in our variable rate. And you're going to see it as it goes from a variable to the fixed. So you're going to see some very steep decreases in our variable rate as it goes over time to get to that 80%. Kind of following that? So with that, I'm just going to kind of stop here again and kind of go through this. So first of all, we're talking about the earliest start's going to be in 2028 when we first start collecting the fixed charges. But really, I'm calling it I'm just going to skip the middle one, the 5-year plan where we're going to collect it, start collecting, get to the max in year 5, and year 0 in year 1. And that is really what the finance committee, because I did the same discussion with them, is that if we're going to do the 80%, let's do the 5-year, and they were good with that as well. Are we in consensus to go forward with this one? Right.
Yes.
Do that. All right, so this one's going to be pretty quick. So the proposal, the allocation of the fixed charge, this is based on water sales still. And we would like to, I'd say the purveyors have requested that instead of doing the 10-year allocation, based on a 10-year allocation, average water sales, to go down to 5. It gives them more flexibility so that as things change, it gets reflected faster in this allocation. And that goes with other areas as you are buying less water, you can then allocate, get less of an allocation on this. And if you look at the two numbers, you can see that really the 5-year and the 10-year, there's not that much of a difference. Even if you look through all those percentages right here, a lot of them are pretty close to the same. I think the biggest one that has the drop is Oxnard, who has actually taken less water, but they've got access to other water supplies that a lot of other agencies don't. So most of them, like Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, that really get all the water, you're going to see they haven't really changed that much. It's really mostly Oxnard that's changed the most. And a couple of them in Simi Valley have actually increased. I think it's Cal Water or Cal American. Have gone up 0.4%, which is, overall it changes like by 1% between the two. So I didn't see anything wrong with going with the 5-year, but I want to get boards to do it. The input on this. The thing I will say is that I know that Director Avila is talking about other allocation methods. And when we talk about the RTS, that's allocated to us based on our water sales. So it makes sense for us to allocate it out to our purveyors on water sales. Same thing with the capacity charge. We're allocated on a CFS basis. So we allocate it out on a CFS basis because it is about capacity, how much you're taking. The more you can get off our system, the less you should need to pay for these things.
I don't necessarily agree. I see them as two different things. I see this more as, these connections are here for everybody. Just because you don't use it doesn't mean it's not there for you. And if it's there for you, you maybe should be paying a little bit towards.
A little bit more or a lot more?
Well, your fixed charge percentage of it, or your allocation. Right, so, if I choose not to use any of your water, I buy a whole bunch of rain barrels and decide I want to use it. My rain barrels until they run out. Once my rain barrels run out, I'm going to jump back on that Calleguas water, and that system was there being maintained for me that entire time. So I should have been paying for it. That's just my belief in this.
I thought like Metropolitan Water District.
Readiness to serve.
Area with among some member agencies.
That is some of the same discussions we did have, and we still ended up at the allocation based on the water sales for most of it. You can see that through the treated water trains.
Very far in the perception of, look at how long our infrastructure goes to get our water all the way out to the east end, right? It costs us more money.
Something like the pipe thing, that would take us to completely redesign how we monitor costs. Because you've got to take every little piece of pipe, every time it's going into a different water.
I'm not saying it should be based off of that. I'm just saying it's fair to be based off of population, because you could take it a step further and say it costs more money to get the water out to the east end than it does.
Tell us too, they've never seen anybody allocate on population, because there's got to be a direct connection between the cost that's being allocated.
It should be based on cost of service, right?
And
Prop to 18, you have to base it on cost of service.
you've got to base it, there's got to be a direct connection between how it's being allocated and the cost that's being applied. And there's not really an easy way for us to say that just because they're part of a system that person should be being charged. Because again, Oxnard does everything they can in order to not take the water. They've got other water sources. And for them to pay a huge amount because they've got a big population, but they use groundwater, that's going to be tough for them too.
Yeah, I don't know if either one is the best option, but I do believe that just because it's charged to us in a certain way, it doesn't mean that we have to do the same thing.
No.
We can find something that's better, that works for us and our purveyors and our ecosystem better. great. I don't think we should do one just because it's.
I would be willing to bet that the purveyors will be okay with allocating on water sales. It's an easy way, it's an easy thing for them to understand and calculate and have control over.
At the end of the day, we've got to cover our infrastructure, and the limiting factor is satisfaction of the purveyors, right? If they're all happy with whatever metric we go with, if it's not the most mathematical or the most direct, but they're happy with it, great.
The treated water charge, I would definitely say should be based on water sales. Just because that is based on water sales. It's based on the water we're buying, which is the water that we're delivering. So for us to allocate it to those who are getting that water would make sense. Because that's what it's based on. It's treated water. It was on a variable side, so we were paying it based on how much water was through. The reason we went to the treated water was that those that were peaking off the system of Metropolitan were starting to pay more of a fair share because they were getting off by only paying the variable rate and not having to pay anything on the fixed charge.
We're still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
If it's all variable, then but if it was all variable compared to now we're just looking at how much you've taken for the last 5 to 10 years, applying that percentage and then calling that a fixed charge. It's just a stabilized variable.
Just a stabilized variable.
Okay.
I would agree.
But which the stabilization helps because our fixed charge are also generally stable. And so I understand the math there, but I mean, yeah, some of it is a benefit to the stability of the revenue costs, and some of it is a little bit perception.
Yes, it still ends up being variable because it's all based on a variable rate, but it has to be something we'd have to be able to come up with, and that's not going to be something that's going to be easy to do because it's got to have a connection between the cost and how we're getting it, and then who has to pay for it.
And I'll finish my questions and statements with my utmost appreciation for you taking on this very confusing and difficult task, and then the ability to be able to present it to us to understand in a way that we can make recommendations. So thank you for that.
Hoping that's what's happening.
I'm feeling it, so.
Right. Kind of decision time. So the question was, do we use the 5-year rolling average instead of the 10, like the RTS? This was something that actually was requested by the purveyors, was to do the 5-year rolling average instead of the 10-year rolling average. They also requested, if we can consider it, is to do the 5-year rolling average on the RTS as well, because that gives them a little more flexibility. That 10 years is a long time to look at water sales. And you can see that it doesn't really matter that much. I think we did the 10 years is to smooth out some of the increases back in the day. Like Metropolitan, we're pretty flatlined with water sales for quite a while now. Other than droughts where we kind of dip and go down, but up and down. But so it was something that they had requested that I'm bringing to the board for consideration. And then other options, like we've been discussing. But again, there has to be a nexus between how we're charging it and what the cost is. So things like the length of pipe could work, but it's going to take a lot of redoing on our part in order to find a way to get that allocation working.
I don't know about quite, but just
How
many people rely on your service to be there when they need, it makes sense to me.
Something that's reflected.
I don't know if there's a direct correlation between the cost of your RTS and the number of people you have. Let's say a bunch of people move out due to some reason, all of a sudden we don't have the right amount to cover the cost of the service. Realistically, at the end of the day, our fixed costs we have to account for, and we're passing it on in some metric. If the purveyors are good with a 5-year rolling average and on RTS and on water sales, as long as we're covering our fixed costs, we're happy. If they're happy, great, costs are getting covered.
Yeah, it's definitely something we can look at if there's other options out there. Most of the times you're going to see water agencies, wholesale water agencies, doing it on the water sales.
I, as a purveyor in the past, has promoted for 5 years.
Yes.
Calleguas didn't listen. Now we have a board who is listening.
And I know that we've had a lot of recommendations from surveyors, and we've been taking those. I know the board has individually been taking those seriously, and as Metropolitan's, as that picture kind of clarifies, looking at that stuff is, more effective now, but, I'm still gonna continue to look at those recommendations. And if I come up with a wonderful idea, please don't hate me for bringing it up to you and saying, I want to redo the whole
Take
thing.
a look at it. Like I said, we've been running all of those options with Raftellus as we've been hearing them. So kind of running it through them to see what they've seen. That's why they've said they've never really seen population used. Haven't really seen anything other than the water sales used. There's a couple that sound like they're going to be like transition lines, but then it ends up being on a water sales basis.
Let's go with localized average precipitation.
Okay, so the other thing is that we gotta kind of have it so that we're in control of some of the data. So are we okay with the 5-year rolling average for the water sales?
Yes.
Is there any discussion about changing the RTS to a 5-year as well to kind of keep them in sync? Now, I will say this, that if we did do that, that I would slowly roll it. I wouldn't just all of a sudden do the 5-year for that. I would go from like 10 years down to 9, 8 till we got to the 5.
Any negative impact towards the district by doing that?
No, we're still gonna collect all the money. It's just how we're allocating it. Who's gonna pay for it?
Yeah.
So really, I mean, it gives the purveyors an option to be able to control some of their own costs based on how their water.
If you're going to change 1 to 5 years, I would support going the other one 5 years too.
Yeah, I'd be on board with that as well.
Sorry, what was it?
I'd be on board with that.
Okay. So, none of this is final because this is just for me to start taking a look at. If you were like, no, then I'm not going to take a look at it and I can go back to the purveyors and say, they took it under consideration, they asked me to go forward, and so I am.
So the pays down on the RTS.
So I'll phase it. I'm gonna phase that one because I don't want to just all of a sudden just drop. One's easy because it's a new charge. Use the 5-year, start it off that way. But looking at the 10-year, I'd phase it in so that it's more of a slow roll into that 5-year.
So they won't be matched up.
They won't be matched up at first, but we'll get there after 5 years. Kind of at the same time that fixed charge gets fully implemented. This 5-year will be fully implemented at the same time. Okay. Two more options from the purveyors. So this one's a little bit complicated as well. So I want to talk about the rate stabilization fund. So this one was one of those, they said it was an alternative to the fixed charge, to additional fixed charges, but really it's not because it's kind of stands on its own. It has a different effect. We're trying to stabilize rates. And then I'm going to kind of walk through how it smooths the rates. I'm going to walk through a lot of slides for this one. One of the things that we have said is that we are actually going to have to take that reverse cyclic water from Metropolitan starting in July of 26. So between July and December, we're taking all that water. So we're not going to have to pay Met for 2,000 some acre feet for the next 6 months from July through December. So we're going to have some savings because we've already paid the water.
Already had a rate stabilization fund in water.
Yeah, so we always sort of said that, hey, we were doing this so we can try to offset future rates. And whether this is the time or not, we don't even know. I'm going to show you stuff that's based on the current rates that we're dealing with, but that all may change once we see the new stuff from Met on the screen like it's there still. But all the stuff that Henry talked about could change this. But we could actually establish the rate stabilization fund that could help in future rate increases, but it takes a lot. So we're going to get about $3.7 million of the water sales from what we actually saved, what we would be paying versus what we did pay. But I did my calculation. I would say 1.1 million of it is going to stay in the fund. Because if we were to put that like $15 million in our investments, we could have earned money on it over the last two plus years. So I'm going to keep a little bit of it. Fortunately, Met stuff went up much higher than that. And we got 2.6 to be able to start this fund if we wanted to. It's going to be board direction. Everything we're talking about here is not final. I can change it at any time until the board says, yes, this is official.
So understand you are establishing a rate stabilization fund in the budget. Is that what it would be? Line item?
I am not sure how it would actually work yet. I haven't got that far. I'm kind of just saying, I'm going to kind of do it on a per rate basis, per acre foot basis to kind of show how it's going to work. But how we actually budget for it, I would say that this actually is the use of reserves. So I may keep the rates officially low and then use this rate stabilization fund that's a reserve out of our unreserved balance or reserve balance, and then reduce it if we decide to use it.
Yeah.
And then just, it's gonna be less revenue. It really doesn't have that much effect like on debt service coverage. The numbers aren't that big at this point, but if it was, we may have to really have a talk with the auditors to find out how like Metropolitan's done it in the past and kind of go from there.
That's a great idea.
So we're looking at to increase the tier one to actually fund this on top of the 2.6, because that 2.6 isn't gonna last very long. And you'll see that. If we did a $5 per acre foot increase, we'd be adding $350,000 per year, which is like next to nothing. We would also need to go to set a limit for the fund. So if we say, hey, we want $10 million and then we stop collecting it, that's what we would do, or $20 million. So we'd set a max limit for the fund so that we don't just keep collecting it like an extra piggy bank that just keeps adding up. At some point, we want to stop it if we haven't needed to.
Have to be calculated in some.
Yeah, we can just come up. I mean, really, it's just kind of, let's start and see where this gets us.
So on an annual basis, at the end of each fiscal year, do we have surplus budgets?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Can we transfer the surplus budgets into rate stabilization?
I mean, we could if the whole board agrees to it.
No, I'm saying, since we are talking about different options, the option you are identifying is adding additional funds.
That additional overage just goes to pay the future underage. I mean, realistically, again, this is to stabilize the rates, which is to make them less variable and a little more.
You're using your rates and you're using reserves for the same thing. At the end, it's the same thing.
If you reserve to stay healthy, then you.
It is the same thing. And again, one thing I do is when I'm doing the rates is it's a revenue requirement, how much rates I need to do, but it's also where are we at with our reserves? How much do we need to try to increase our reserves at some point during the year? So if the money's there and our reserves are good, then we don't have to do the rate increases as much. So either way, it's sort of.
We're already accounting for that on an annual basis.
Actually put the $5 on the rate and then started collecting it. It's something that's coming off the rates that are set aside, and it's not dependent on how the year went.
You pay a little more when you're paying less.
Yeah, you're
Pay as much when you're paying more.
putting it into a rainy day fund. And you put it on the rates rather than.
I'd rather keep this money in our investments and continue to earn interest on it and use that.
Well,
cost in the long.
It will be on our interest. So unreserved balance is not something that I'm gonna stick in a separate bank account for this. It's gonna be in with all of our investments. It's in the bottom of the reserves after we have all of our assets, liabilities, and everything left that flows into that. We don't have to do this. I'm okay.
So I support rate stabilization fund. How do you collect is what we are discussing.
And we're going to show you how it's going to be used and what little effect it actually has.
But we also have a set of limit on how much we want rate stabilization.
Yes, we need to have a limit.
That will grow.
Right, how far do we want it to grow? And it would have to grow quite a bit in order to do some of the differences.
And I'll probably ask this a couple more times, but how much demand from the purveyors was there for this?
There was demand, actually. This actually didn't just come from Director Paul. This actually was a suggestion.
I'm trying to evaluate while we evaluate the validity and the impact, what the desire is.
It's hard to say how many are for it because one person says it and then the rest are just like, okay, someone threw it out there.
No, but
So,
some is.
but it did come from the purveyors as well. I was able to say, oh yeah, Director Paul already asked for this as well. So,
Because Dan hasn't gotten into this level of detail with purveyors about how it work with us.
Yeah.
Some of the differences we talked about on the last topic about how our rates are different than what retailers' rates are structured to be. What you're gonna see here is the effect for a retailer of a rate stabilization fund is different than it will be for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once Dan goes through the details of this, I think their appetite for a rate stabilization fund generally was high because they know how it functions for them.
It's different.
yeah,
But
it's a lot bigger for us. It takes a lot more.
takes a lot, yeah, sure.
So that's kind of what I'm going to be showing with some of these slides. So these were
That's a couple zeros.
based on the 9.5 nines going across from the Metropolitan and then incorporating our increases in there as well. So you can see that there were some big increases coming up in 28 and 29, 8.3 and almost 8% before it drops down to a nice 7.35%. with no rate stabilization. So if we just took that $2.6 million instead, and I just started using that, and I'm using it over, that's really a 3-year period, even though there's 4 years of numbers down there because it's calendar year versus fiscal year. We use it in 3 years and I'm barely dropping those rates. The first one does go down from 8.3 down to 7.8. And then the next one just drops a little bit from 8 to 7.8, but you'll see those two at the end then increased because eventually you've got to square everything up. So eventually you're just pushing that rate increase and you're stabilizing it over time. And it only does 3, and we've gone over, $2.9 million and we barely made it down. When you're talking about, barely made it down, okay. And at the end, that negative sitting there, it means that we're actually using fund balance to fund this. I didn't have enough to actually get through all 3 years. If you're looking at doing the $5, you can see that I can increase them all the way across. It does lower it a little bit more because you've got more money. But after the end of those 3 years, you're down to $99,000 and you've spent $4.2 million. And at that $5 increase, it takes 12 years to replenish. So we went through that really quick and it's going to take us forever to get back. So, I mean, this is why I'm saying that, it takes a lot for us to have a rate stabilization fund. And it might be best if we just kept doing what we're doing and trying to run it through our reserves rather than stick something aside and hold it there.
And it goes to show how different we are as a wholesaler from our purveyors.
Yeah.
It
just takes a lot. We'd have to increase a very large increase on there. I also did a $10. So the very bottom one is a $10 per acre foot, just so we can kind of see that too. And you can see there is 1.7, but I didn't change any of the assumptions. Like I didn't try to lower the rates. The reason the rates change is because if you see those 3 oranges, we started at 7.3 and 27. You had the $5, we're up to 7.5. And if you had another $5, we're going to be at 7.73. So by adding that rate increase, you're increasing the rate for 27 because you're putting more on the variable rate. So it's going to happen. But you still only up to 1.8. You still spent that 4.2. Of course, if you have $10, it's going to take 6 years to replenish it, not 12. But 6 years is still a long time to wait in case something happens.
Which is why I was kind of wondering if you see, whenever you see a year where you're going down to, what did you have there? You get 1.5 drop. You're gonna have to make some changes.
Well, yeah, because and you're smoothing the rate over 3 years because you can't just do it in one.
Right.
Because once you do it, and that's what I was trying to show you on this slide, is if you just do the 1 year and you smooth that 8.3 and you get it down to that 7.64, that next year your rate goes up to 8.6 because you got to make it up. You still need the money. You just put it off for a year. So then you've got to do a 3 year. And the problem with that is that you don't know what Met's going to do in 29 and 30. So it's an unknown. And because we've seen these before, that you never know what Met's going to do. I mean, the 9s are high right now, but the ones where we're going to get revised, they're not going to be 9s. They could be 6s. They could be 5s. And then next thing you know, they're doing 9s and what are you going to do? And we're not going to have enough in that rate stabilization in order to fix this. We never do.
In that time that we buffered with purveyors from the increases, how long did that take? Was that 18 months?
Yeah, well, from which way back when?
Yeah.
We didn't buffer them for the first time. That was like right when I started. We held it off for 6 months or so and we did it slowly increment over time. But right, we ate that. That was just us using reserves and we never recovered that. We bought a well fill instead right after it.
We also used reserves.
We have done other things and it hasn't been this bad. We were able to do things on our rates that was keeping it low. We would cut where we could, keep our rates low because our rates bring Mets down. So Met would come up with a 7% increase. When we combine it with ours, it might have been like 6.1. And then we do a little thing, try to do what we could to get it below that 6 back when we had that mission statement that said we were going to try to keep it, or strategic plan, we were going to try to keep it at 6% or below. And so we had to do, sometimes I held off on some of our capacity card charge costs, pushed them off for years. So it was stabilizing it that way. But it's never been like this where we're looking at 9.5% increases. Those are really hard. That's why the first time when Met came up with those 2 years ago, I was like, we can't do the 6%. There's nothing we're going to be able to do about this. We have to pass this through.
When you use reserves to offset that, you're taking away your ability to offset rates in perpetuity in the future.
Right. And right now, what I'm working on with our budgets is to build our reserves back up because we've spent a lot of reserves in the last couple of years during that last drought. And so I got to build them back up in order to be prepared for the next one. And it's hard because we've got a lot of things we want to do. You'll see that when we get to the budget. So yeah, those little rate increases really just disappeared. They're 7.35, 7.17, but they just gone. So really it gets us to the question, do we want to continue to pursue this? Now, I did get the finance committee to say yes, but I didn't present all of this information. I kind of presented it different. So not that I was trying to change their opinion on it, but I don't think I did a good job of presenting really the way we needed to present it to them.
Okay, board discussion. Nobody wants to kick in?
I asked my questions along the way.
I'll kick in. I don't think it makes sense to have a rate stabilization fund considering everything you've presented.
Holistically, impact of our financial impact versus the benefit that it would provide, does it seem to make sense?
I mean, there could be some benefit to it down the road, but again, we'd have to really get a really large fund going in order to make something significant. But again,
and that benefit would then be depleted and then we'd have to start all.
Repleted and then we're not really, and Met sort of ran into this too, just as an example. They ran out of their rate stabilization and then everybody's seeing it and they ran out of it for a different reason. They used it for something that we didn't really think should have been used for.
I'm not convinced.
It wasn't there.
But thank you for explaining it clearly.
That's true.
I'm getting it. I'm receiving it much better than previously.
Can I get consensus on yes or no?
So the way I see rate stabilization is we are charging $5 per acre foot every year.
Yes.
And then the analysis, based on the analysis you did, it doesn't make sense either.
No.
But the way I was imagining the rate stabilization fund is to smoothen the rates, not to fund the rates every year, but smoothen the rate when something hit by metropolitan high rates. So we absorb it with the rate stabilization fund. That was my thought process when I was talking about.
Well, that's what this is doing.
Yeah.
This is using reserves to smooth the rates. It just doesn't smooth them very much.
Okay.
In a 4-year period. I was just.
So you cannot collect enough money to smooth it. That's what you're saying. Because
You can smooth it down, the 8.3 and the 8, get down to a 7.7 or 7.
So there's no benefit. That's
So it's, and then, yeah, it's just eventually you're gonna run out and you're gonna have to do something.
okay.
When I was thinking about rate stabilization before being briefed on it all, I thought it was for the purveyors to pay a little more when their rates were low or when they took less water so that they wouldn't have to pay as much when they had to take more. And they had kind of their own, you pay a little more so that you don't have to pay as much later on. But yeah.
So if you remember, our increases, we don't need rate stabilization for our increases. We're keeping them in the 5s, 4 to 5s percentage increases. It's really about metropolitans. And that is such a huge part of our budget that it really makes it hard for us to collect enough funds to stabilize some of their rate increases, especially when we're talking 9.5s and 9s. You know, they're going to come down, fortunately, I'm hoping. But it's still going to be very costly in order to do this. And it's something that we could do and we continue to look at it, but I'm not sure this is the time.
Okay. I'm fine what you're presenting. I don't see a benefit of rate stabilization in our case.
No rate stabilization. The last one I have is the drought rate surcharge. Again, purveyors presented this as an option instead of doing additional fixed charges. And And this one makes a little more sense as far as it doing it, although the fixed costs do not increase. They don't increase during a drought. And it can be problematic, of course, as the sales drop and the fixed charges are still there. It's the classic, why are my costs going up when I'm conserving water? It's because the costs don't go away because they're fixed. So the drought rates would ensure that we can meet our finance obligations during a drought time when the sales are gone. And it does work that way, and we wouldn't need to collect as much fixed charges because one of the things that we're doing this for is because during that last drought, the sales dropped and we were met with having to use reserves. And this would kind of fix some of that problem just during those time periods.
And we had the question, has this been done by other wholesalers?
I'm not sure about the wholesalers yet. I haven't quite got the answer to that one yet. It could. It's not seen as much on wholesaler side because I don't think there's as much of a need for it. They don't necessarily care as much, but I think we could find a way to do this if we decided to go down this path.
What I see come up with this, though, is the same thing that the purveyors often bring up, which is we want to know ahead of time what our fees are going to be so we could budget for it and figure out what our rates are going to be. If we have a drought rate surcharge, we don't know when the droughts are coming. They don't know when the droughts are coming, and we suddenly tack on a drought rate surcharge. Their ability to be able to
and
update for that.
It would be tied to our water shortage contingency plan. So they'd sort of know when we start passing those contingency plan stages that it would kick in. This one would take longer to implement because we are currently in the process of redoing our water supply contingency plan. We have to do it every 5 years. And so we're in the middle of that and we want to kind of wait for that to get finished. It really doesn't add to fixed charges. So that fixed charge discussion is kind of separate, but it would supplement it in the times where there's a drought. So it could help us there. It would provide the additional revenues. And I definitely would have to start re-engaging because we have not really talked about drought rates. It came from them, but we haven't talked about how that would affect them. But we kind of put up a little table to just kind of show how it works. So in that contingency plan, what?
Every drought, so the last drought, and I'm very involved with my public. They are very angry. They are very upset about having to cut back about their lawns. Now we're going to be telling them, you have to cut back and we're going to hit you with the surcharge.
Yeah.
Talk about angry people.
Right.
This is a bad idea.
And I have another problem a little bit with it too, is that I sort of see the droughts coming. I budget my water sales lower and I help us develop a budget that's.
Budgets? He's on point. He's got a crystal ball.
And so.
See that curve?
Thank you. And so, when I do that, that's kind of taken into account. We try to set a budget that's going to be lower. And we did that and we try to make sure, even though during the drought, we couldn't cut enough in order to make it. We still had to plan on using reserves, but we did increase the rates right after that. But this would almost encourage me to keep the sales at 70-some thousand acre feet, no matter what I do.
Right. This is just another way to equalize variable rates into fixed rates.
It's actually going the other way. You're trying to then cover some of these fixed costs on the variable. You're just going to increase it during those times.
Right. So you would do less fixed rate to do variable, but then to add a surcharge to pay back the fixed rates that you didn't collect.
Wow, another argument for 100% fixed rates.
I mean, well, here's the thing. Cost of operation stays the same. This is all just how it affects you compared to your neighbor and how you perceive it compared to. Well, now what we can do is some of this does affect how much things hurt when they hurt and how much they impact you when they don't. And so from that perspective, I think it's very important to be able to consider that to individuals. But things like this, I think it just goes back to keep it simple with the sweet spot of fixed versus variable and whichever area that satisfies our rates, but also satisfies the purveyors. And I mean, imagine if we implemented all this, the chaos of accounting. I mean, we've got drought rates.
No chaos.
Then we've got something else. I mean, I don't know. Dan's doing pretty good, but I don't know what bandwidth he has.
Yeah.
So, but please.
I think that this one in the future could be looked at again. I think that this is something that if we really talked to all the purveyors and got a lot of feedback from them, And then if they are really interested in this at some point, come back, it would take a new study to kind of go back. I'm not sure they would. There are purveyors that have actually implemented this.
This comes up, I'm not interested in what the purveyors want to say. I'm interested in what my ratepayers are gonna say when I'm telling them that,
I
sorry.
think it's just passed through.
Who's interested in this?
I don't remember which agency it was. It could have been,
Was some of the purveyors?
it was a purveyor that actually suggested this is where they're, and then within that Camarillo,
See their perspective, because I don't understand.
Camarillo just recently passed it not that long ago, because they were at the finance committee meeting.
They do this to their ratepayers?
They've adopted it.
Okay,
Now, they haven't had to use it yet,
okay.
so they don't know how that's gonna run through.
I'm trying to understand the benefit. I don't
The
necessarily.
benefit is that you are collecting additional revenue
I understand the need or.
from the Camarillo side.
From the issuer.
I'd love to see this kick in an election year. Good luck, Rio.
I have a little bit different concept about what, I didn't know what you're going to present. The concept I have is just for the board's information. We could consider storing water in the ASR well field equal to the amount of water we needed during the last 5-year drought between 2012 and 2016. I don't know how many acre feet that was. Let's say if it's 10,000 acre feet. If we were to store in our ASR well field 2,000 acre feet every year to cover 5-year drought, what that does is we are buying from Metropolitan at a lower rate. And we are going to be, of course, pumping costs will be added to that. I would be interested in knowing how the economics will work for that concept.
So storing water is just like storing money. And now you're balancing the increase in Metropolitan's rates versus our investments. So which one's going to go up faster? Let's say Metropolitan's rates go up 4% over 4 years. Let's make it simple. But our investments go up 6% over 4 years. And we're better off keeping the money that we would spend on the water in the bank. And also the bank, I think, is a little more secure than the ASR field, just because of the uncertainty of the actual.
Well,
To bank on the appreciation of the water that's stored over the metropolitan.
that's what I'm saying. Metropolitan will not be less than 5% for sure. It will be 6% or higher forward. We'll never get 6% rate of return.
And you hope there's not any losses in that investment in the ASR well field.
So what
And we've got to talk about a leave behind.
so even if you do all of that on a long-term basis, you have right here in our backyard.
No, I would say that also changes depending on the capacity of the ASR and what we put in there, right? If
I'm pretty sure we're at capacity now based on what's sort
No,
of
I'm not.
based on, because we've hit the 27,000 or 500, kind of, maybe even more now.
So, yeah, we are at what we consider current capacity that we're comfortable with. I mean, one of the tasks ahead of us as an organization is to determine what level of increased storage we're comfortable with out there. And until we do that, we don't know whether what the cost benefit or what the risk of storing 2,000.
Because that amount of storage is what we feel comfortable having there, but also that we use in an emergency. So I wouldn't want to say, okay, well, half of that is what we're going to use as water investments, but then we don't have as much for emergencies. I don't know.
Hopefully we can have this conversation within the next year and we'll have more storage space that we know what to do with.
If it was like a non-contested cement reservoir with a cap, yeah, sure. I think that'd be a little more analogous to investments, but never know when the litigation will come up. I mean, you never know when the bank will close down now, so.
Well, we can talk more about it. I mean, we can discuss this further down once we know our analysis. But this is something that I would like to look at the analysis at least, see how it works out financially.
Good idea.
But the drought rate, that is something that, my experience as a purveyor, that you do kick this around as a purveyor, because what happens is it's all trickling down. So the drought affects Met, drought affects Calleguas, drought affects purveyors. All comes down.
I'm also going to point out that they offer this as an alternative to increasing fixed charges, and we're going to be increasing fixed charges. So I'm not sure that they'd want to let's see us do both.
Double dipping.
Yeah.
Unless someone can explain this to me in a way that makes sense, I don't think I'd be for it.
Shelve it.
Okay, shelve it. So I'm almost done, believe it or not. We've got some next steps on the cost of service study. I'm gonna go back March 26th to the program meeting, present what we've got from the board, the 80%. April 23rd, if there's still more discussion, probably gonna go there. Planning to get this service adopted May, June after the rates, because we're not putting anything out there that's gonna be related to the 2027 rates, since we're putting zeros in that first year of the phase-in. So that makes it easy for us to hold off and get our rates adopted and then do the cost of service study afterwards. I could have a board meeting in there too, depending on what comes out of these purveyor meetings. Come back to the board, tell you how that went. Although most of the time, some of you are in it anyways, and you
Raise it to finance committee and whether or not it should be a go or no go to.
we can go back to finance committee as well. So I haven't set any of that up, but I'm really going to be talking to purveyors to see where they're at next. Those are my really big next steps, and kind of go from there. Because if they're all fine with it, then I can just kind of move forward, get it finished, and then come to the board for adoption. For the water rates, as Henry has said, we've got another meeting on the 24th. Then I'm going to go back and start talking about water rates again with the purveyors. Hopefully we get some really great news from Metropolitan and some of these rates come down and I can present something, prepare something and present it in 2 days. That's going to make them a little bit happier. They're going to drop on the 14th. We're going to set our hearing at that special board meeting on the 29th. That'll also help me get the rates adopted on July 1st at the first board meeting in July. Because otherwise I'm not going to probably be able to do it till like August. So we wanted to get those done and adopted as quick as possible. I'm done.
Thank you, Dan.
Great analysis.
We're clapping for you and the great job you've done, not because you're done.
It can be for both. I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Dan. All right, do we have a general counsel report?
No.
You.
I was gonna do this. I was gonna walk over here.
Take a deep breath. Say no.
Well, you just did. Don't bill us for those minutes. Thank you. Okay, up next, we have board of directors reports, committee meeting reports. We did have a housing committee. And Fernando, would you like to report on our housing committee?
Oh, yes, please. Absolutely.
Good evening, Board of Directors. Yes, as President Avila was explaining, the ad hoc committee on staff housing met on March 6th. We took a field trip over to Corona and Riverside to tour two factories that manufactured homes, Cavco and Silvercrest. And that gave us the opportunity to observe the construction of these homes from the fabrication of the chassis through every stage of the framing, the electrical, plumbing, rough plumbing, finished plumbing, finishing the homes, including painting. And it was pretty productive, gave us an opportunity to see the standard of care and the quality that was implemented into those products. The bones, yes. And the committee did provide staff direction that staff is working on compiling some information for a follow-up committee meeting here in the near future.
What are the cost of the homes?
Costs?
Depends.
Yeah, it depends on the trim level. We did ask a couple times, but the manufacturers, since they are represented by sales offices, they were not at liberty to provide those numbers.
And did ask the sales offices and they deflected that question over and over again. They don't.
It's like a car dealership until you're sitting at the desk.
Mm.
But what was important to see is
the question of what these costs is. So
when they're
I asked
the different sizes and trim levels. Oh, how much is this one like? Well, we'd have to sit down.
I asked the salesman. So there was two people in the group. There was the manufacturer who was giving us a tour, and there was the salesperson. And I asked the salesperson, well, what's something like this cost, or what would something like that cost? Or we're looking for 1,600 square feet. How much is it? Well, I can't talk about that right now, or I could get you something later, or yeah, I don't have those numbers.
Wait till I find out how much.
But it was very productive to see the build process, the attention to detail or not, the quality of the materials used, piping, PEX versus copper versus, it was something that if we're considering this, and I always come back to the business cost benefit, how much do we spend on it and how long does it last and when does it start being its own, amortized producer? And that really comes down to the build quality.
Yeah.
And how much you invest into what, is an ugly stud, but a strong stud the same as a pretty stud.
So we did see that, the first manufacturer we went to, the outside of the house was very pretty. It was more modern. It was different, definitely different than your standard, what you're used to seeing your classic double wide, but the bones, lots of finger joints, some 2x4s that, 8 feet long had 5-finger joints making the 2x4. Or, very bad quality, missing half the 2x4 on the corners, right? The second manufacturer we went to had almost no finger joints. The bones looked a lot nicer, but the exterior or the finish, the ultimate finish was definitely more just the square, more basic house, but bones seem better, so there's a lot of things to consider and to think about when you're making these decisions, just not what it looks like on the outside. The outside might look great, but every stud might be made out of 5-6 different pieces.
Yeah, I don't know the outside. So just for my information, are we looking at one home now or what's, go ahead.
Great.
There are 3 forms. Can you please tell me where we are? Because it has been going on.
The recommendation we gave to staff was to, based off of the contracts, right? So the committee said, well, we're looking at doing 2 homes in one contract and 1 further down the road. Well, our thought at the committee was, well, if we're doing 2 now, cost of everything's going to increase. What if we do 1 contract with a phased rollout? So the contract would say 1 house, then the other house, then third house in succession based on the needs of the district and the needs of the staff to support housing, which would save us money on rentals for staff, right?
And the amount of movements that take place.
Yeah.
My only thought is, my understanding is costs are going up because of inflation.
Yes.
Time is money.
Mm-hmm.
If we do 2 now, wouldn't it be cheaper?
We are doing
Right, so-
so, right? So we're doing a phase. So we do
The idea is a contract for 3 with a phased
Oh, you're
implementation.
contracting for 3.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't catch that. Okay.
So we would build the last house first. House 2 would move into house 3, then we would build house 2. The last person would move into that second house and then we'd build the third one. So it'd all be under one contract.
One contract, but phased installation, but the costs are fixed. You're awarding a contract.
Correct.
Got that locked.
Ideally.
That was the recommendation we gave staff rather than doing separate contracts.
Thank you. Thank you for clarification.
Yes, excuse me. So yes, we're working on the cost savings, cost impacts. We're doing 1 contract to execute 3 homes under 1 contract. And plan is to have another ad hoc committee to report back to the committee. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for taking time and visiting those manufacturers' homes.
It was our pleasure. We enjoyed seeing what, potentially our district could be investing money in. So it's important that we see it. Okay. And that was it for that committee. We had a finance committee. I think we've heard everything from the finance committee, but what would you like to repeat?
Dan, could you come back up?
Yeah, no. You're fine job.
All right, that covers the committees. Up next, we have director's list of admin code reimbursable meetings. Director Quady.
Okay, on March 12th, I attended the Aqua Regulatory Committee meetings, the Water Management, Water Quality, and Energy Committees. On 3/13, we had the Super Brownlee event. It was great. And then I wanted to note this. I was interested in attending the Alwa water issues on 3/17, but I had no invitation. So I couldn't, and I didn't find that out fast enough. I know that if I would have contacted Kara sooner, I would have been able
They were dealing with issues with their invitation. I think Wes assisted them on rectifying their issues. But I'll make sure that all our board is back on the invitation. I'll reach out to them on that.
And then today, this morning, Aqua Region 8 planning event and tonight's board meeting.
Thank you, Director Quady. Director Pacala.
Yes, on March 6th, I attended Moore Park Rotary Club meeting. Time to time, I'm invited to these meetings, and general manager, deputy general manager also came and made a presentation about our Calleguas plans. Because of Calleguas team is coming, actually, I saw more Rotary members coming to the meeting. On March 12th, I had Waterworks District 1 and 19 citizens advisory committees come and toured our facilities here. Our staff, Kat, Charlotte, did good job organizing it and making presentations. Our general manager, deputy general manager were here. This is the first time advisory committee members came. Not all of them, majority of them first time came here. They really appreciated it. They asked good questions. On March 13th, attended Federal Grant Award celebration. Our vice president did a good job while our president was away. On March 17th, attended AWA Water Issues Committee by Zoom. There was a good presentation by John Demers, our GMA executive officer. He gave a very good historical perspective. I don't know how many of you watched him, but he did a good job. He brought us all the way back 50 years ago where we are today. That was a good summary of everything that happened about the groundwater pumping and where we are today. Lastly, today's board meeting.
Thank you, Director Pacala. Director McMillan.
On March 6th, I attended the West Ventura County Business Alliance's annual business conference at CSU Channel Islands. On the 12th, Aqua's quarterly policy committee meetings. On the 13th, the check presentation with Congresswoman Julia Brownlee. On the 17th, the Water Issues Committee for Aqua. On March 18th, tonight's board meeting. On March 5th, the North Caucus. March 8th through 10, MWD committee and board meetings, and my vote is recorded below, along with the vote of the board. March 11th, the meeting with Graham Bradner. He's the executive director of DCDCA. And on March 13th, the DCDCA board briefing.
Very, very busy month. Thank you, Director McMillan.
Oh, and by the way, I was appointed as DCDCA's legislative advocate and also as president of the Delta Finance Authority.
Wow, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Here, here. For Robert.
Yes. So on the 5th, I attended the AWA board meeting. They went over some administrative and financial items, ratification of the administrative ad hoc committee actions, renewal of the managing director contract, 3% salary adjustment, and a slate of directors for the upcoming year. There's a 34th annual water symposium on April 16th. On the 6th, the ad hoc staff housing committee we heard about.
Sorry.
The 13th, Julia Brownlee's appreciation event. 16th city council meeting for Port Hueneme. On the 17th, the water issues, AWA, and tonight the board meeting.
Thank you, Brenda. For myself, on the 6th, we had the ad hoc housing committee. On the 5th, I had a Aqua committee chairs discussion. Priorities for my committee, local government, that survey are going to be emergency management, general plan updates, and additional dwelling units, ADUs. On the 10th, I completed a mandatory, very long ethics training. On the 17th, I attended the IWA water issues in person. On the 18th, 2 nights board meeting. And that's it for me. That covers all of us. Thank you, everyone. And up next, we have discussion regarding upcoming meetings to be attended by board members. Does anyone from the board have anything that's not already listed in future meetings that they'd like to report?
Yes, on March 19th, I plan to attend PAC meeting by Zoom. On the same day, I had a Waterwork District CAC meeting. On March 25th, GMA board meeting in Ventura. March 26th, VCERA is going to have a reception in Santa Paula to discuss the activities they did year long. It's by invitation only. And then on the same day, I have Waterwork District 1 rate review for water rates.
Thank you, Director Bacala. For myself, and I think probably Director Quady, we have a few Aqua board meetings coming up. On the 23rd, we have a board meeting. And on the 30th, we have a Aqua closed session board. Anything else?
I will be attending Aqua's Region Leadership Roundtable on the 19th and the executive board meeting on the 20th.
Director Quady. Next, we have a request for future agenda items.
Yeah, I would like to be nominated by this board and get a resolution from you because CSDA has an opening on their board for our district. They listed the requirements. I'm already doing most of them. There's only 2 of them I have to include, and that would be the actual attendance at a board meeting and then taking their leadership academy, which is 4 days. And Director Raul was very concerned. He says, isn't your plate kind of already full? And because he was worried about metropolitan and my commitment to them, but Met is only 3 days a month. And so, and I'm very used to taking heavy loads.
But there is also a lot of meetings that come along with the Met meetings and already attended
Zooms.
10 meetings this month. And I'm concerned that, from my point of view, our Met seat is very important. It's one of the most important seats. That's the same discussion I had with you. I'd like to see our Met member really try to focus their time to make the best use of that. And I you are I think I'd be concerned that you have too much on your plate.
Well, I appreciate your concern, but I'd like it brought to the board just for discussion and have a resolution prepared. And again, if anybody has the same concerns, let it be voiced.
I guess the only question I would have is how are you doing on the attendance for BCSDA?
Oh, I missed the last board meeting. No, this is for CSDA, not the Ventura County chapter.
The CSDA, right? But the supporting role is you're going from the ground up, right?
Yeah, I've missed the last meeting, but I'm.
BCSDA moved from monthly to bi-monthly.
So that's free.
2 months.
I mean.
Yeah.
So you're able to go forward with that.
So there just aren't a lot of BCSDA meetings throughout the year, and there's 6. CSDA is a whole other animal.
Yeah. They're very active legislatively, especially.
Do they travel a lot? I know that Elaine travels a lot.
Well, that's because she was the president.
Right, but this role doesn't involve that kind of.
No, well, just travel to the board, and that's once a month.
Where is that?
Sacramento.
Would you be going to Sacramento every month?
Well, yeah.
Wow.
If I get on the board.
And you're okay with being capped at 10? 10 meetings?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I used to be very involved with CSDA, and it's just in my heart. I'd like to get back involved.
That's a great organization. I learned that But, yeah, so this is something can be brought up, but later.
Yeah, we could put it on the agenda, like.
And you're welcome to raise my cap to 30, whatever you'd like to say.
That'll be, yeah.
That's the water code. We got to talk to our legislators about that. And Dan for budgeting. All right, thank you. And any other agenda items we'd like to add? Okay, we have any board comments? Great. Has everyone had time to look at the informational items, or would staff like to cover any of them?
I looked at it and everything.